Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
This is The Savage Nation. Now, where were you in 82? We've contacted the New Yorker on this breaking story about a second accuser of Kavanaugh, and rumors are spreading, now, that Kavanaugh walked into the bedroom playing this song on a Sony Walkman when he allegedly, did what they say he did. So we'll play the song again for those of you who missed Urgent by Foreigner. And I want to ask you, where were you in 82? What repressed memories, ladies, are coming back to you? We're hearing about these crazy things that went on in the 80s. Do you think that it was limited to Catholic schoolgirls in Maryland? And what's this about Catholic schools, by the way? Am I daring to even ask that question? I mean, there's been a rumor in America for a long time, you know what I'm saying? That religious education tends to repress certain feelings and emotions that flare up now and again. And what's with this big boozing at that all-girls school? I thought that you sent your daughters to these schools because they led a better life. Well, no, not really. As I've said to many people, these private schools are good because, well, your kids get cleaner drugs there. And they're safer. They don't have to go into the ghettos to get the drugs. They just buy them from the teachers or whatever, wherever they get them from. But allegedly, it's much safer. The drugs are safer at these private schools. And so a second Kavanaugh accuser comes forward who says she was drunk and doesn't remember, but it doesn't stop Ronan Sparrow from being the little bird that he always has been and ruining a man's reputation.
Hey,
but
friends,
you know, the real loser here is the New Yorker magazine.
I kind of told you this last Thursday that there was going to be another woman come forward.
Of literary magazines in the country. I grew up on it. I love their profiles. I was honored when they profiled me in 2009. And here we see this magazine so desperate for a readership, whatever, that they're going into the gutter and ruining people's lives. In this case, a man named Kavanaugh. But tomorrow it could be you. Do you want to live in a country where a man could be destroyed by a man, a person? Because tomorrow it'll be a woman who can be destroyed by a mere whisper. A whisper campaign. That's how bad it is. Well, I have a big announcement to make today now that you're listening on the salacious stuff, because I know you wouldn't listen otherwise. Nobody wants to hear anything except about sex. That's America today. That's all there is on anyone's mind. It's always been sex, 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 sex. Sex, sex, sex. Now, I'll get back to Kavanaugh and Catholic schools in a moment, and where were you in 82? But I want you to go to the Drudge Report and see the cartoon of me that was put up. It's not the most beautiful picture of Michael Savage ever done. I mean, I'm a good-looking guy sometimes. Sometimes I'm horrible-looking. Like everybody else, you know, you have good days, good hours, bad hours. And it's like, there's many different pictures of me out there. This is perhaps almost Frankensteinian, but I kind of like it. It's got autumn colors to it. It's mustard-colored. Michael Savage to launch the Radio Hour and a podcast. It's a huge announcement in the industry, and I have to tell you what this really means. And I'll read you the headline from Westwood One. Michael Savage revolutionizing talk radio with new hybrid broadcast and podcast. Now, that's the Radio Hour, followed by a podcast, and I'll tell you more about that as time goes on. Storied broadcaster to host the Savage Nation 1 hour radio show and new free, it's free, you don't have to pay for it, intimate and revealing original podcast starting January 2019. It's very important you understand it's not starting tomorrow or today. It's in January, so don't expect this until January. New York, September 24th, 2018, Westwood One. America's largest audio network and legendary broadcaster Michael Savage are innovating together in 2019 with the launch of a 1 hour version of the Savage Nation radio show, which has millions of dedicated listeners and a new original podcast. Here's what I have to say about it. And I wrote the words. I didn't have a PR person write it. As I move into the next phase of my 25-year radio career, I hope to bring even more listeners to the medium of audio with the Savage Nation, said Savage. I will be free to innovate in unique ways on my podcast. The flexibility of the platform will permit me to expand my storytelling and insights into politics, books, food, cars, and rock and roll. I'm going to change the way talk radio is spoken and consumed, I said. They then quote Suzanne Grimes, Executive Vice President of Marketing for Cumulus Media and President of Westwood One, where Ms. Grimes says Dr. Savage's on-demand audience is massive, and I have no doubt this new podcast will be too. He has fans from all over the world and from different walks of life who will flock to his versatile new shows. That is the announcement that will revolutionize radio for many reasons, and I should say things now that are not putting anyone down. I just want you to hear it from my point of view. I've been in the business almost a quarter of a century. It's not the longest anyone has been in talk radio, but it's amongst the longest time anyone's been in this business. I think Rush has been in it 3 more years than that or something. Now, I know what the 3-hour long-form radio show is all about because it's what I've been doing since 1994. And I will tell you from my own perspective, the first hour is usually the best hour of anyone's show. And the way this business works is the second hour is usually a repeat of the first hour. The third hour is just telephone calls and filling up airspace. That's what talk radio is generally. Now, not for all, but for some. I don't want to do that. I haven't wanted to do that for a very long time. Secondly, I have a different kind of radio show. It's a show that I like to develop ideas on my show. I like to develop ideas on my show. Have you heard my frustrations when I'm cut off in mid-sentence because I have to go to a commercial break, which pays the bills, frankly. Without them, we would have nothing. We're not National Public Radio. They live on the government dole. NPR lives on the government dole, which is why they have such high ratings. You think they're so brilliant? All these leftists who make these huge salaries. So, yeah, I would like to develop my ideas a little bit more. I'd like to have long-form interviews that I can't do right now. I love interviews, and I do great at them. As few as I have, they're really good. I had one on Friday with that female psychologist. She was just wonderful. I think she caught many of you by surprise in that she wasn't really a conservative in any way. She's probably very liberal. And she gave the benefit of the doubt to the accuser in a way, but she said her memory was probably flawed. And she explained what psychology has taught us, which is that memory is flawed, as a matter of fact. There's many papers on the issue of flawed memory. And we will talk about that because it's a very contentious point right now. It's definitely a contentious point, which is a thing called imagination inflation. Imagining a childhood event actually inflates confidence in the person that the event actually occurred. So if you imagine it happened, it happens in your head, okay? That's a big story that we'll talk about. But going back to the new hybrid 1-hour radio show that I'm going to be doing, again, I suggest you go to the Drudge Report to link on it, Savage to launch radio hour and podcast. I want to ask you something about this, those of you who have listened to me so loyally, and because it's the audience that makes it all. This will give me a chance to be more intimate with you. Do you understand what I'm trying to do here? There'll be no breakups for commercials along the way. The commercials will be there, but I'll probably insert them at the top and at the bottom. I'm not sure where I'm going to do them. But the intimate relationship with you, the listener, will be such that I can develop ideas with you in a more intimate way, to use that word again. So I'm going to ask you something. What do you want Michael Savage to do on the podcast? Do you want more politics, or do you want more other stuff? And what other stuff? How many family stories can I tell? I can't make them up. Every one of them is more or less true. Not all of them. You talk about memory. I mean, I've written these stories based on the memory of a child, Dead Man's Pants, or Fat Al's Tuna, things like that, or Louie and the Monkey, or The Leatherman Gets Cancer. Everyone loves those stories. How true are they? They're as true as I can remember them to be. But can I tell you 100% they're true? I think they're true. But what's the difference? They're stories that have awakened America to another time in America that everybody seems to want me to talk about. What do you want me to do on my podcast? Because you're going to be the audience for it. And believe me, it's going to be a change for me in ways that maybe even I can't imagine. So again, where were you in 82 is another question. That's on a more serious level today, because I think that this whole issue of these women coming forward, and the second one is less credible than the first one, who had no credibility to begin with. And we'll talk about her and why I say she has no credibility. And the main reason is she didn't come forward during the hearings. This creature from the Black Lagoon, Dianne Feinstein, should be thrown out of the Senate for what she's doing. This gutterish behavior by Feinstein is the clever example of the best defense is a good offense. You see, no one's talking about Dianne Feinstein and her scandals, are they? It's all about the scandals of Kavanaugh, which may not have even happened. And when you think about it, why didn't Feinstein release this during the hearings on Kavanaugh instead of sandbagging everybody after the fact? Why? Because the whole thing is a setup that stinks to high heaven. And I will tell you what I think. I think it's backfiring on them, not only amongst liberal men who are saying, wait a minute now, I did some things in high school that were pretty crazy and wild. I don't want them to destroy me when I'm a man. I don't like this. I just don't like this climate that the Democrats are using right now because it could destroy me. So even liberal men are having second thoughts. But what about the women? Do you think women are that gullible that they're all believing Kavanaugh's a rapist just because these left-wing fanatics say so? When you realize that many of them are lifetime left-wing fanatics, operatives of that kind, even open socialists, as apparently the lawyer for the first, quote, victim is, Ms. Katz, is seen wearing a socialist fist power shirt. What does that tell you about Ms. Katz? You think these people are honest? You think these people are true? You think these people are not below destroying a man just for political reasons? Don't be stupid. And I think it's having a devastating effect upon women in this country in many different ways, including women saying, now, wait a minute. We were all wild at some point in our life. We were in high school. We did stupid things. We smoked pot. We drank a lot. Maybe we got a little wild, you know. Is this now going to define us for the rest of our lives? Moreover, should we now go back and destroy any man in high school who we fooled around with now? Should we look him up and kill him? Do you think that that's what women are going to do because of this whole thing about Kavanaugh? These are huge, huge stories that are much different than what you're hearing in talk radio in general, which has become like watching a Yule log at Christmas. In my opinion, I'm sorry to tell you, much of talk radio has become like watching a Yule log. How much can you hear about Mueller and Rosenstein and Mueller? And this, every day the same story. That's what I mean, a Yule log. All I can tell you is what I'm going to do in radio is a continuation of what I'm doing in radio, and I want to know what you think. You want to hear on my podcast in January, which is, again, in January. Do you want more politics or do you want less politics? Do you want other topics, and what do you want them to be? Remember my background. Remember my background in the books I wrote before I was in radio. Never forget that. I'm the only one in radio with many, many backgrounds that are all real, with followings in all of those other fields, including health-related topics, and I intend to incorporate all of them. How about religion? How come nobody else does spiritual things in talk radio? See, here I go now. I could talk for an hour straight now that I got warmed up. I could talk now about God, faith, and reason and spirituality and spiritual things. I could talk about ghosts. I could talk about God. I could talk about Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, and Abraham all at once. And let me tell you something else. I think people are starving for the spiritual in AM talk radio, which I will do in podcasts, as I will do food, as I will do health-related topics. I may do pets. Remember, I wrote Teddy and Me. Unlimited, what's coming. But we'll do the news of the day when I come back, because all you want to hear about is Kavanaugh. Again, if you want to read more about this big story, about the big change in my 25-year career, you can go to the Drudge Report, and you will see the headline, Savage to launch radio hour and podcast. I'll be back to take your wonderful calls in a moment.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Today, America's economy is flying higher and faster than any major nation in history. What President Trump has achieved has been amazing. But what happens in the November midterm elections could quickly slam on the brakes, sending the financial markets into a tailspin. The emergence of a socialist Democratic Party could have huge consequences, believe me. How will the midterm elections affect your investment portfolio? Find out now in a new Swiss America special report how the midterm elections will affect your bottom line. You get it today free by calling 800-289-2646. That's a number you have come to trust. 800-289-2646 or visit SwissAmerica.com. This is very serious business. If the Democrats gain a majority in Congress, all the economic gains we've seen could quickly disappear. Get prepared now. Call 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646 to find out how the midterm elections will affect your bottom line.
You're listening to Michael Savage. Coming up at 3, it's Mark Levin on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
I believe that most women in this country are not happy with the direction that the vicious lowlifes in the Democrat Party are taking this nation. I do not believe that any woman who has a son wants their son to grow up in a nation where their son's life could be ruined by one girl who gets mad at him 20 years later. Let's say they are going out, let's say you're dating a girl in high school, and they break up, and it's a bad breakup. What, 10 years later, that girl could destroy him when he's a professional because she can go out and do a whisper campaign with some lowlife from the New Yorker magazine? Do you think any mother, even a liberal mother, wants their son to grow up in such a climate of character assassination? The vileness of this, I think, is dissuading even liberals from going along with this grotesqueness. Nobody should have to put up with character assassination. We've lived in a nation of laws, more or less, for a very long period of time. And along comes this creature called Dianne Feinstein, who has upended the entire nation with her salacious accusations in the most phenomenal violation of Senate rules that I have seen in my lifetime. They had a hearing. They tried to destroy him during the hearing. Remember how it backfired on them? Remember Cory Booker said he had his moment? He thought he was a big hero. Cory Booker crashed and burned trying to grandstand. They all try to grandstand on Kavanaugh. They all crashed and burned. So what does this lowlife Feinstein do? After the hearings are over, she comes up with this cockamamie story about this party girl who was molested by Kavanaugh when they were in high school. Kavanaugh being a boy at the time. That's not enough. They come up with another one who says, while I was drunk and I don't know what happened, I think he did it. That's number 2. Now, I will say this to you. Kavanaugh himself is not backing down. He says, I will not be intimidated into withdrawing. I figured he'd back out by now. Because they have not only tried to destroy him, but his family as well. Never forget what effect this is having upon his children. Don't you love all the Democrats who are always talking about the children? The children. The children. Look what that vicious gutter snipe Feinstein and the others have done to the children of Kavanaugh with this campaign. They have ruined these children's lives for a very long time. You tell me they really care about children? They've always used children as a weapon to get every dollar that they've ever wanted. I think it's backfiring. And we'll talk about my new 1-hour radio show and podcast when I return in the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-SAVAGE.
You know, I can't stress enough how broken the home security industry is. The legacy companies are stuck in the 80s, still locking you into 3-year contracts, still hitting you with hidden fees, bad tech, old tech. But Simply Safe Home Security is different. This is home security that finally gets it right. Simply Safe started 10 years ago with a mission to fix the industry. They cut out contracts, middlemen, and pushy sales guys. They made it easy to set up your system with no hardwiring or tools. With Simply Safe, you get professionally monitored 24/7 protection for just $15 a month. That's police dispatch, fire dispatch. Everyone loves this system. They love how it works, how easy it is to use. That's why today Simply Safe protects over 2 million people and has won Editor's Choice Awards from CNET, PC Magazine, and Wirecutter. Go to simplysafesavage.com to order your Simply Safe system today. You're going to get a 60-day risk-free trial. That's simplysafesavage.com. You're going to get a 60-day risk-free trial. Again, do it now, simplysafesavage.com. You know, Kavanaugh, Schmavanaugh. What they're doing to Kavanaugh tells you everything you need to know about the smear tactics of Dianne Feinstein and company. And I believe and I have a very good stethoscope to America, especially since my audience is not strictly conservative nor Republican in any way. I've always been an independent conservative from the day I began in radio. I've never been a Republican. I never voted. I've never been a member of the Republican establishment, and I'm proud of that. I'm not tied particularly to any party, especially not the Republican Party, but definitely not the Democrat Party, what they become. I mean, I grew up in a Democrat household. That's no secret. My parents were immigrants, and they were poor, and to them, the Democrats represented friends. The Republicans were for rich white people. So nothing's really changed when you think about it. I mean, the same exact visual story is being told today that was told when I was a kid. But the fact is that my audience consists of a large number of independents, and I have a good stethoscope to the huge independent votership that got Trump elected, which is why Trump got elected, and he knows that. Personally, I think he's too tied to Sean Hannity right now. Personally, I think he's too tied to Fox News right now. Personally, I think he needs to reach out to the independents right now. Personally, I think that they're isolating him in a Fox News chamber that's not good for his political future. I've said so, and I'm saying it right now. And you know that I'm going to tell you what I think, both as I have done on the radio and my new, especially on my podcast. Now, if you think that when I do a podcast, I'm going to do a Howard Stern dirty word thing, you're wrong. People say, oh, you can be real free on a podcast. Free to do what? Be a moron in a street, a gutter rat? You think that's going to get ratings if I say the F word 50 times in a row? Or the B word? I'm not a rap star. I'm not going to use dirty words because I find that they're debasing of the English language. I don't need them to make my point. I'm going to do a revealing show that I can't do. I'm going to do an intimate show that I can't do. I might do a piece in a restaurant the night before and run it on a podcast and talk about the food. Actually, I'll just put down the other people in the restaurant here in the Bay Area. That'd be more fun than the food itself. The behavior, for example, of liberals as they go into an Asian restaurant and bow as they ask for a napkin. All I have to do is sit there and eat my dim sum and say, look at that moron. They just came in from the Mission District. They're bowing to the guy who just came off the boat from you-know-where. The guy's looking at him like he's a moron. Or I could do a thing on nutrition, health. After all, it is my field of expertise. And I've written in the field since 1972. I have a doctorate and 2 master's degrees that are real. I didn't get them out of a crackerjack box nor a mail-order university. So religion, another area I love talking about, because I've never met God. I've only looked for him, which makes me a more godly man than those who tell you that they've met him, because I don't know anyone who's really met God. I distrust anyone who tells me they met God, because I don't think they have. I think the last person who saw God was Abraham, and I haven't seen him for a while. KSFO, Lana, line 1, go ahead, please.
Hey, Dr. Savage, it's nice to talk to you. I got a copy of your book, God, Faith and Reason, for Christmas, and I've been listening to you ever since. It was amazing. It was a wonderful book. So if you asked what liberal women think, well, I consider myself liberal. I am a woman. I think this is actually hurting the Democratic Party more than it's helping them, because the Democratic Party doesn't stand for liberalism or progress anymore. It stands for radicalism. And what's happening is just another form of radicalism. They just
Well, I understand they stand for radicalism. They took a sharp turn a while ago and went into the socialist side. But the smear campaign is nothing new to them either. They did it to Clarence Thomas. They've done it to anyone, by the way, anyone who Trump would have appointed, they would have smeared. But I'd never thought that they would do it at this level. Are you a mother yourself?
I am a mother of a son and a daughter, and I worry for both what accusations are going to be leveled against my son. And I'm worried that if, God forbid, something ever did happen to my daughter one day, because of antics like this, she will no longer be believed.
Now that's an interesting viewpoint, which is that they have so debased actual victims that no one will believe anyone anymore. It's like the boy who cried wolf all over again.
Correct. Exactly.
You know, I don't think many people have read Aesop's Table. Aesop's Tables. It's a good restaurant name. Aesop's Table. I guess I'm hungry again. But I don't think people have read The Boy Who Cried Wolf too recently. But how long can Dianne Feinstein keep screaming about victims until eventually they say she's lying? Do you think liberal women, forget the pink-hatted women, they're fanatic losers with whistles in their brains. I'm talking about liberal women, truly progressive women who can think, educated women. Can they see through the Dianne Feinstein smear campaign?
what I consider myself to be. I would never be a pink-hatted woman walking down the street hating all men. That's ridiculous. It doesn't help anybody. I think that the Democratic Party, and I live in San Francisco, I'm in the Bay Area like you are, and you know that to be...
Are you originally from New Zealand or Australia?
Australia. I've lived here for 5 years. We moved here 5 years ago. And I came here thinking that if I ever got the right to become an American citizen and register to vote, I would 100% be a Democrat. That's what I thought. That's where my belief system was. But that old saying of "I didn't leave the Democrat Party, it left me" is where I'm finding myself now.
I don't know how any parent can vote for a Democrat after what Dianne Feinstein is doing to this man. Lana, last question. It's a busy broadcast day. How did you get God, Faith, and Reason? How did you come to find my book?
Funny. My husband bought it for me for Christmas. I'm very spiritual, and he had heard that many of the questions in your book were, questioning what is God, who is God, where is God, and these are questions he hears me asking all the time to my children.
Right. That's right. You can't tell people that you know who God is. All you could do is help your child understand that we all search for this higher power, and that they have to engage in the search themselves. And I would say religion can help them on that road, but religion may not be the only answer to that ultimate truth. I thank you for calling. I'm sending you a brand new copy of Stop Mass Hysteria, which will be out 2 weeks from now. So stay on the line. It's your lucky day. What a day this is. Savage announcement. New Savage Nation. What do you want to hear on the new podcast coming in July? I asked you about where were you in 82. I don't mean were you taking a shower or were you on Yosemite Mountain. I've asked you where were you in 82 with regard to repressed memories that are suddenly popping up, both men and women. Because if you look back, I know in my audience's age bracket, I have no idea what it might be in the 40s on average, maybe mid 40s. So go back to 82. How old were they? Maybe they weren't even born, some of them, actually, when you think about it. 30 years old, so they have no memories. They were infants in a cradle. But what about those of you in your 50s? Where were you in 82? You had your Sony Walkman. You were in high school or junior high school. Are you telling me you didn't engage in this, all you good, holier-than-thou liberals? Now all of a sudden he's the evil one? And how can any liberal man who is of a libertine persuasion, wild, free, and crazy, not understand how this is going to come to haunt them and destroy their lives unless you stop this witch hunt right now? I think that it's reached its high watermark. I think it has to start to recede right now, or else we're all going to be flooded by it. KLIF, great station, Dallas, Sue, line 7. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Michael, I would love to hear food and nutrition on your podcast, especially some good information from all of your old health books that I have and unfortunately haven't read. But yeah, I'd love.
Well, how did you get my old health books, such as Nutrition Against Aging, Maximum Immunity, Feeding Children Naturally? I wrote all these books in the 80s. How did you get them?
Well, you've been talking about them for a long time, and that is my background, so I love it. Well, there was an independent bookstore in Frisco, Texas, that helped me obtain most of them. So that's how I got them.
You know that some of them are very expensive. They're collector's items, unfortunately. They're not even been reprinted. Yes, I'm going to do a lot of health stuff.
Great.
And you want to hear something interesting about that before I break to another idea here with all the news and whatnot going on with Kavanaugh, and everyone wants to know the latest detail of
who cares about this garbage?
Yeah, which woman's come out of the woodwork now to bring out a box of tissues and start crying in the Senate on Thursday. A lot of the information in my health books from the 80s is actually more relevant today than it was then, and I'll tell you why. Because there are so many zany ideas that are seeping into the popular culture about health and nutrition that make no sense whatsoever. And it's all mainly by people who have no training whatsoever in human nutrition or in medicine. None whatsoever. And they're making stuff up that's crazy. I mean, some people are drinking their own urine. Things of that nature. And where I'm coming from, looking backward, which was radical at the time, was based on science, not based upon made-up stuff. So you can look forward to more of the science of health and nutrition come January. I'd love to do that. What is this now? Liberal, even having doubts. WBOB, Steve, line 5. You're up. Go ahead, please. What's your topic? Steve, BOB, are you there? No, he's not there. Okay, Steve left. That happens. That's radio. That's live radio. You know, I don't even know if I'm going to have calls on the podcast. We haven't figured that out yet. We'll have the calls on the 1 hour radio show. I can't wait to do 1 hour radio because here I am almost through my first hour of the show. You can feel my energy level, right? You know I could do 3 more hours. But it's only going to be 1 hour of radio, so you're going to get the best radio you've ever had in your life. You know, when you condense that energy into that 1 hour, it's going to be 3 times better than the 1 hour that you're getting now. Because it's going to be 1 hour instead of 3 hours. You get it? So, why am I looking forward to the podcast? Because for the first time, I can expound on ideas, no stopping and starting mid-idea or mid-sentence for a break. You'll get concise information. You're going to get more than the news. You're going to get commentary from perhaps the leading conservative voice on the radio. The podcast will allow me a freedom that I've never before had. Sides of Savage never heard before. You want to hear true freedom of thought? That's what's going to happen. I will be able to communicate with you in different ways outside the run-of-the-mill political talk that you can still get anywhere else, and God bless you if you do. And I will get deeper into any topic than I've ever been able to get to. And the new platform will go beyond sound bites into the depth of the matter. It will not be just about the news. This new platform will extend my famous storytelling abilities and will give me the flexibility to explore more diverse topics. No more stopping and starting, mid-idea or mid-sentence. Big headline on Drudge today. Michael Savage revolutionizing talk radio with new hybrid broadcast and podcast coming January 2019. When I come back, I want to talk more about the news of the day, because today is really a big news day in that I think that the Democrats have overplayed their hand. I believe that we've reached the high water mark of the smear campaigns, and I believe that the blowback is coming, especially from the independents. I don't expect the radical women in the pink hats to ever change course. They are who they are. They're psychopaths, all of them, as far as I'm concerned. The whistleblowers that cried when Trump was elected, they're lost. They're lost to humanity. I'm talking about the huge swath of undecideds, the non-Democrats, the non-Republicans. People say I don't affiliate with either party. That's like people who don't go to church but believe in God. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, most Americans believe in God, but they don't go to a house of worship. Well, in radio, most Americans politically don't identify with either party. They want to reserve judgment, their own judgment. And I think on this Kavanaugh story, Dianne Feinstein has destroyed the Democrat Party for 50 years. What do you think?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Today, America's economy is flying higher and faster than any major nation in history. What President Trump has achieved has been amazing. But what happens in the November midterm elections could quickly slam on the brakes, sending the financial markets into a tailspin. The emergence of a socialist Democratic Party could have huge consequences, believe me. How will the midterm elections affect your investment portfolio? Find out now in a new Swiss America special report how the midterm elections will affect your bottom line. You get it today free by calling 800-289-2646. That's a number you have come to trust. 800-289-2646 or visit SwissAmerica.com. This is very serious business. If the Democrats gain a majority in Congress, all the economic gains we've seen could quickly disappear. Get prepared now. Call 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646 to find out how the midterm elections will affect your bottom line.
Now back to Michael Savage on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Let me tell you about Super Beats. If you combine nitrogen and you bond it with oxygen, what do you create? Nitric oxide. Now, you've heard about that, especially you men. A miracle molecule made by your own body that works on your cardiovascular health and helps keep you vibrant. We'll leave it hanging in the air, keeps you vibrant. But as we age, our bodies need help with this important process. Super Beats by Human has harnessed the power of nutrient-enriched beets, and they've created a superfood that helps your body make more nitric oxide of its own. And Stephen from Illinois says the Super Beets taste is pleasant, as is the increase in energy. It's a great caffeine substitute without the negative caffeine side effects. So I want you to call 800-481-0504 or go to savagelovesbeets.com and find out how you can get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets. You heard me right, free, and free shipping with your first purchase. Just call 800-481-0504. Try it for yourself, and you will feel the 1+1 boom effect of Super Beets by calling 800-481-0504 or going to savagelovesbeets.com today. Now, one of the things that people have come to here on my show, and I'm not apologizing for it. My show used to be an afternoon drive show. It was that for 20-some-odd years. And then I shifted times to afternoon drive on the East Coast, but it became noon here on the West Coast. Well, I'm hungry around this time. And sometimes I eat on the air, and people say, I don't want you to eat on the air. I can't help it. I have to eat, don't I? I'm a human being. So you're not going to hear that anymore. You won't be hearing that, because I'll do the 1-hour radio show, and that'll be, you won't hear me eating on air anymore. So for those of you who don't want to hear me eating, you're lucky. You got January to look forward to. You'll only hear my brain and my voice, not my teeth. If you knew what I just did during the break, you'd say, Savage says he's revolutionizing talk radio with new hybrid broadcast and podcast. I could also revolutionize the time it takes to make a lunch in a radio studio. Do you know what I just did? I'm not going to talk about Kavanaugh. I think this is more interesting. I took leftover cavatappi pasta and I reheated it. But that wasn't going to be enough. There's no protein in it. And I didn't want red sauce on it. This is in the 5-minute break that you just heard me take. On it, I sliced up some chicken from a chicken I had bought and cooked. And I heated that up on top of it with an egg. I stirred an egg on it. I microwaved that. I put all of that together. And what a lunch this is. It's better than Chinese food, isn't it? It's better than I don't want to eat cat. Once beaten cat over rice, or once beaten rat over fried rice. So this is a healthier lunch for me. And I did it all in 5 minutes. I think I'm going to give you these instant recipes as well from time to time of how to make a lunch in a few minutes and not die from it on the Savage Nation come January.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, the Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
And approaching another poor woman who he's about to molest in a bedroom, wearing his Walkman, playing this song. Well, that's the image that Dianne Feinstein has in her filthy, disgusting, sick mind, as do all of the other octogenarians in Congress who are sexually promiscuous in their own heads. This is all they think about with regard to a man who has a sterling reputation, a man who has gone through a vetting process to be a federal judge. How come no one ever brought that up? He's not an unknown quantity, Dianne Feinstein, like you're not an unknown quantity. Everyone knows your background here in San Francisco. You think because they love you in Temple Emmanuel, the rest of the world can't see through you? You think because they ooh and ah when you walk into the opera, oh, there's Dianne Feinstein. You think the rest of the country loves you? They can look right through you. Well, the fact of the matter is you have a background, Dianne Feinstein, as does the entire Democrat Party right now. And it's sort of like the people you're accusing rather than the accused themselves. You seem to be dirtier than they are, and the people can see right through you. But let's look at Kavanaugh for a moment. Here is a man, let's put aside the stuff about what he did in high school or junior high school. Let's look at the fact that he is a federal judge who went through a Senate hearing to become a federal judge, and the very same obstructionists tried to smear him then in a different way. You heard me. Senator Turban Durbin, a man who called our U.S. Marines Nazis and fascists, and he's still in the Senate, because he represents a largely anti-American constituency, in my opinion. He called the U.S. Marines in Haditha fascists and Nazis because they didn't get killed first. They chose to kill the enemy first. He's still in the Senate. He's one of the main witch hunters. Look at the others who were accusing. Charles Schumer, Charles Schumer, a man above reproach. Adam Shifty Schiff calling Kavanaugh a rapist. Has anyone looked into Schiff's background in junior high school or high school? I wonder what dirt they can find on him. I wonder what skeletons are in Schiff's closet. But you see, we on the other side of the aisle don't seem to have reporters like Ronan Sparrow. We don't seem to spend our time trying to dig up dirt on our enemies when they were in junior high school or high school. Maybe we ought to. But then what would that do to America? It would bring us to a lower level, a bigger laughingstock than we already are because of Dianne Feinstein, the octogenarian who can't get her mind out of the gutter. But remember what I just said to you. Kavanaugh is a known quantity. He went through a Senate confirmation hearing that was obstructed for over 3 months by Senator Durbin and others who are doing it to him again. I think we need an FBI investigation of the obstructionists rather than of the man being obstructed, personally. And when Kavanaugh is appointed, and I hope the vote comes really fast, personally, I don't even think that the accuser will show up Thursday. I think that her and a snake lawyer won't even be there. And I've never heard, by the way, of an accuser going second, not first. What kind of law is this? Usually in a court of law, you get to face the accuser, right? Someone who's accused of a crime gets to face the person accusing them. So listen to the ground rules that this lawyer, if you want to call her that, of hers, this Katz, this prize winner Katz, has laid down. Listen to the rules she's laid down. The poor victim of Kavanaugh will not even be in the same room with him because she's so traumatized that she can't afford to be in the room with him. She's liable to have a nervous breakdown. Number two, she's reversed the law, and now the accuser will go second, not first. The way a court works, the accuser gets up there and makes the accusations. Then the person who's accused gets up and defends themselves. But Ms. Katz, as you would expect from Ms. Katz, has insisted that the weak old men under Grassley do it her way. Well, I got to tell you, the big loser here is Grassley. He's confused a glass of water for a gavel so many times he doesn't know where he is. We have no men worthy of the name men on that committee, or else they would have put their foot down by now and said, you know what? Take a walk. We gave you all the opportunity you had. You don't want to come? Good for you. That's the end of it. And what they're going to do here, if Kavanaugh gets, let's say, the votes, which I hope he does, I hope the murky ones like Susan Collins, who likes to play it right down the middle, and the others the other would-be McCains. I hope they don't stab Kavanaugh and America in the back, because if they do, they're going to be thrown out of office. They can only play it safe for so long. They can only sit on the fence for so long. But like Humpty Dumpty, they will have a great fall if they stab Kavanaugh in the back. I can guarantee you. You know, they put their... Which way is the wind blowing? The wind is blowing in the direction of character assassination, and the American people are basically a fair-minded people, and they don't... I'll tell you another thing, American people, that you don't know about. Maybe you don't remember this. It was long known since I've been a little boy in America that America loves an underdog. Now, while Feinstein and her hate mongers have tried to paint these unknown women into the underdogs, it's backfired on them. The real underdog here is Kavanaugh. The real underdog is Kavanaugh. He's the one getting smeared, and most Americans can identify with the man who's facing a smear campaign from accusers who are not really credible. At the end of the day, he said, she said. No, it's not even that. It's she said, she said. We've gone from he said, she said to she said, she said. Well, it doesn't work very well in the minds of most people, and you could take that to the bank. I'm also talking about a breakthrough for my career, a change in my career after almost a quarter of a century, if you can believe it, because I remember the day I started in radio. It's like yesterday. Headline, Westwood One, Michael Savage revolutionizing talk radio with new hybrid broadcast and podcast starting January 2019. I want to reiterate, it is a free podcast. There's no payment. I'm not selling you anything. It's not premium radio. That's a model that works or doesn't work. This is free for you. You will find me somewhere. And where will you find me, by the way? People say, how am I going to find you? I got to tell you right now that some stations will drop this show as a radio show for many reasons, which I will not talk with you about right now, including one of my biggest affiliates in the country, because the individual who runs the station wants to take it in another direction. He wants it to be a liberal station. So people, hundreds of thousands of people are going to say, how am I going to find Michael Savage? I listen to him on the subway. I listen to him in taxi cabs. Well, you're going to have to make note of the fact that for free, you'll be able to download my radio show at michaelsavage.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Westwood One Podcasts, and the Westwood One Podcast app. So the fact of the matter is you can find it almost anywhere at any time of the day. That's going to be the beauty of it. So if you don't hear me on the airwaves in your local market for political reasons, maybe I back Trump too much, maybe I'm too incisive, maybe I'm too gutsy, maybe I say it like it is, maybe I call him like I see him, and it just doesn't play with certain program directors. You know, they want Mantovani music. They don't want Beethoven. And so if you are going to miss me come January, you'll be able to find me somewhere simply by punching in the name Michael Savage, and I think it'll come up as a podcast, again, for free. My guess is that my audience will actually increase in size, not decrease, or else I wouldn't have done this. I mean, I could have also retired, you know. People do retire. But my enemies who want me to retire so they can take this slot and make money with it, unfortunately for them and the cartel that wanted me off the air, they lost and I won. I pulled it out of the hat at the last minute. The cartel thought they had me finished, not only on the ropes, but thrown out of the ring. What they don't know is I'm liable to be here longer than they are. But that's up to God, not me. I'm going to tell you something I learned a long time ago with no particular person in mind. Today is my mother's birthday, and she passed away in 2003. And hardly a day goes by that I don't think of my mother, because I wouldn't be here without her, would I? Would I be here without my mother? Would you be here without your mother? And she was on the show numerous times. She was a great addition. She made the Savage Nation very happy. Mama Savage Radio. Well, we'll do that another day when we're not as political. So I think of her very often, and for years after she passed, I used to try to call her, at least in my mind. I said, I'm going to call my mother, but she wasn't there. You ever get that feeling, you know, you guys who know what it's like to lose a parent? Like, oh, let me call my mother, but she's not there. So she's not there. So you say, okay, so she's not there. But something happened in my family a long time ago, again, not talking about any names. Somebody stole her life savings who was very close to her, who I knew. She came to me with tears in her eyes and asked me to do something about it. I know what she wanted done, but I'm not that kind of person. And I said to her, listen to me, Ma, I'll take care of you. Don't worry about the stolen money. Let God seek the vengeance. I said that to my mother. Well, she didn't insist that I do anything, but I know what she wanted done. He stole her life savings, and she said to me, do something about it. I said, Ma, let God seek vengeance. Well, as the story evolves, and lo and behold, years later, this very evil person was punished by God in the most humiliating way you could ever imagine. A man who thought he was untouchable. A man who was so cool for the room that the people were awed by him. Well, he wound up with nothing, living nowhere, with no friends, humiliated to his last days. Do you know why? Because God stepped in and sought the vengeance. And the same is true in my life. For all of those people who have stood in my way and worked behind the scenes, whispering in the night, spreading false rumors about me in the radio industry, working with program directors to get me off the air, I will tell you this. Don't look to me to harm you, because I won't. Not verbally or any other way. Let God seek the vengeance that you deserve.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Hey, you know what's not smart? Job sites that overwhelm you with tons of the wrong resumes. But you know what is smart? ZipRecruiter.com/savage. See, unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't wait for candidates to find you. ZipRecruiter finds them for you. It has powerful matching technology, which scans thousands of resumes, identifies people with the right skills, education, experience for your job, and actively invites them to apply. So you get qualified candidates fast. No more sorting through the wrong resumes. No more waiting for the right candidates to apply. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the U.S. This rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And listen, right now, Savage listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/savage. That's ZipRecruiter.com/savage, SAVAGE. ZipRecruiter.com/savage. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
You're listening to Michael Savage and the Savage Nation on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Well, we're all going to hear from Kavanaugh tonight. He's going to be on Fox News with his wife, trying to clear his name. And thank God he's not on the Hannity show. I mean, he's a little too much of Hannity, don't you think? Who looks more and more like Lou Costello. Hey, Abbott! So thank God they were smart enough not to go on the man to go to, not. They're going to go on Martha McCullum's show, which I'm going to watch at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. I want to see Kavanaugh and his wife. They look like pretty great people to me. I wonder if the accuser will let herself be seen on some show, you know, where she can tell us in gory details what happened. I'm getting wonderful responses to my announcement on the Drudge Report. Jane for Trump says, personally, if you have a bite of food during your talk show on air, I feel like we're having lunch with you. It's all good. I like that. That is like having lunch with someone. You know, don't you sometimes go to a place and the guy's eating lunch or the woman? So what if he's eating? But some complain about it, so I figured I mentioned to you. I have been an avid listener of your show for over 3 years now. I began listening to you when I was 26 in college, surrounded by liberal ideology day in and day out. I cannot begin to tell you how much listening to your show seemed to improve my writing and studying. Oh, that's good. Very nice. So I'm not going anywhere. It's in God's hands. You know what I'm saying? Do you know where you'll be in January? Do I know where I'll be in January at the end of the day? Do you really know where you'll be tomorrow? Remember what I wrote in God, Faith, and Reason at the funeral of the character? I forget the name of the character that I gave him when the guy from Israeli intelligence is there at the grave and I'm the only, me and the guy's son is there. And the Mexican gravedigger is looking down in the hole where they just dropped the guy. And I say to the guy next to me who I didn't know, and I said, I have no idea about, you know, where I'm going to die. And he says to me, none of us know where we're going to die. Remember that one? It's a great line. It's written better than I just said it. I'm a little distracted right now by all of the news. So many of you who are my fanatical fans, thank you. I appreciate it. I will have more personal time with you. And although you don't have to agree with me, as Elvis Trump says, I don't always agree with Savage, but for the most part, I find his show and his stream of conscious style to be highly entertaining. He is one of the few talk radio hosts who realizes he's in show business. You know what? He's right. I would be lying to you if I didn't know this was also show business. But if you believe in the show business that you're in and your messaging comes across through your show business, that's even better. And so across the world, you will see. No, I will not throw a cuss word in every now and then. It's unnecessary. But I know many of you will be there. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. Right? 855-400-7282. I'm not going anywhere. Like a phoenix, I rose from the ashes. One day that story will be told. Like a phoenix, I rose from the ashes, not for the first time in my life. And so what fun that's going to be come January. Look, I'm going to revolutionize radio. If you think I'm going to be the last one to go to a 1-hour radio show, you're mistaken. I know from the inside of the industry, from some top program directors, they've been mumbling for years behind the scenes that most talk radio is unlistenable after the first hour, and they would love to have 1-hour shows from the top hosts. That's what I've heard. Whether they will do it, whether it's economically feasible, whether the hosts want to do it, is their decision. It's all up to the individual person. I'm not dictating the direction of radio. I'm telling you what I think is going to happen. And I want to say a little bit more about the time and the length of a show for a minute. Talk radio, as you know it, emerged from the years that this was nothing, that this medium consisted largely of music, and it was disc jockeys who were on for 6 straight hours. I don't know if you know that. Most radio hosts were on the air for 6 hours, with the exception of people like Walter Winchell, who was on for that 1 hour a week. Most of them were disc jockeys. They played music for 6 hours from a hotel in Detroit somewhere or Chicago. That's what radio was. And then when the talk format emerged, well, they said do 6 hours. Well, no one could do talk for 6. They gave them a 3-er. Well, it's many years later. You have shows on television that are getting shorter and shorter. You know why? Because people's attention spans are shorter. How many people still go to the movies compared to watch like a Netflix at home? And how long is an average Netflix segment? What do you call it? Segment, whatever they call it. A episode. I don't even know what they call them. I mean, I watch them all the time. They're about 50 minutes long. They're not 3 hours long. People don't sit for 3 hours. And the TSL of talk radio has gone down every year for everybody. TSL, time spent listening. I know it because I study these data figures very carefully. So I think the attention spans, the options for listening to other things are so vast that the 1 hour will be bigger than my 3 hours, and the podcast will be bigger than the 1 hour.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Take 1 atom of nitrogen and bond it with 1 atom of oxygen. Boom, you just created nitric oxide, a miracle molecule your own body makes that fuels your cardiovascular health, keeping you vibrant. But as we all age, our bodies need help generating more natural nitric oxide. Super Beets by Human has harnessed the power of nutrient-enriched beets and created a superfood that helps your body make more nitric oxide on its own. The core philosophy of Human is to develop heart-healthy products for your body. 1 teaspoon of Super Beets daily tends to support your cardiovascular health and blood pressure levels, giving you natural energy without the need of a quick caffeine kick or sugar high. We're talking real, healthful, natural energy. So call 800-481-0504 or go to SavageLovesBeets.com and find out how you can get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets and free shipping with your first purchase. I want you to feel the 1 + 1 = boom effect of Super Beets. Just call 800-481-0504. All right, so Mr. Kavanaugh and Mrs. Kavanaugh will be on television 1 hour, I think, after the show goes off the air tonight. 7 p.m. Eastern on Martha McCullum's show on Fox News. I found it odd that they didn't pick the go-to man who's like the Zelig of the Trump administration. Wherever you turn, there's Hey Abbott. Wherever you turn, there he is with the part down the middle, looking like Jerry Lewis during a telethon. I don't know. Maybe they're smart enough to know that by appearing on someone else's show who seems to be less biased, they have a better chance of reaching a broader audience. Maybe that's the decision they made. I'm surprised they even know that. Now let's look at the timeline for the second Kavanaugh accuser, who says she was so drunk that she doesn't even know who it was with, but she's sure she's out to but she's positive enough to destroy a man's name. You know, there ought to be a law in America that if you accuse someone and it's found that you can't prove it, you are subject to the same penalties as the individual who you destroyed. How would that be? Maybe that would stop the false accusations and protect all of you liberals and conservatives and independents alike. What if there was a law? You know that it won't happen because the lawyers run the courts. The courts are run by lawyers, and the lawyers, as you well know, are not out there for the truth. They're out there for business. It's all about business, not about truth. They don't care who they destroy along the way. But what if the day comes in America when people say we've had enough of the Slimestein type who have tried to destroy a good man, and it's a lifetime of that, and this destruction of this man has reached the Waterloo. We don't want this anymore, the high water mark. So here's the law. We're going to run this law. We're going to put it into the law books. Anyone who accuses someone, for example, of a crime and cannot prove it in a court of law is subject to the same penalties that the individual who was accused will pay that penalty and pay legal fees. You think that would put an end to the accusations? You're darn right that would, right? Now, the likelihood is very low of that happening because, as you know, the courts are controlled by lawyers, and they're never going to let that happen. But let's look at the accuser of Kavanaugh. Grabien, which is a great website, put out 16 reasons to question the veracity of Kavanaugh's accuser. Well, there are many of them. Ford's attorney, Deborah Katz. You know the type, don't you? I ran from New York because of that type. I left New York in 1968 to get away from the Deborah Katzes of New York. She's an anti-Trump activist and Democratic donor who has previously defended Democrats accused of sexual assault. Ford's also being advised by a Dem operative who derailed Robert Bork's nomination. Ford's therapist notes of the incident don't match our current version of the story. Wow. Ford, by her own admission, has a hazy recollection of the incident. Polygraph tests are so unreliable they are inadmissible in court. Really? You didn't know that, did you? The allegation wasn't released by the slimeball Feinstein until Kavanaugh's hearings were over. Kavanaugh has successfully passed 6 FBI background checks. Remember, he's a federal judge. Has Dianne Feinstein passed an FBI background test in the last few years? What if his accusers had to face an FBI background check like Durbin? What if Durbin and Feinstein and Schumer had to go through an FBI background check? That would be nice. 65 women who knew Kavanaugh in high school have vouched for his character. The only witnesses claimed by Ms. Ford, who I call Miss Fraud, Dr. Ford or Dr. Freud or Dr. Fraud, the only witnesses that Dr. Fraud mentioned deny her allegations. Besides Ford, there are only 2 other named parties, Brett Kavanaugh himself and his friend Mark Judge. Both have issued vehement denials. Then another witness now denies Dr. Fraud's account. Another one came forward and also denied Dr. Fraud's account, okay? The final witness now also disputes the account. The female that Fraud named as being at the party, Leyland Kaiser, has since come forward and denied even knowing Kavanaugh. You hear this one? Or having ever been at a party with him. Through a statement to the Senate Judiciary Committee, she wrote, Ms. Kaiser does not know Mr. Kavanaugh, and she has no recollection of ever being at a party or gathering where he was present with or without Dr. Fraud. That's a woman who was named by Dr. Fraud and her lawyers. Are you listening to this? Do you realize that this evidence is enough to throw this case out in any court of the land, except when it's run by a kangaroo court under Dianne Feinstein? Then there's the alcohol. Did you know that Dr. Fraud deleted her public social media accounts before revealing herself? That's right. Dr. Fraud deleted all her social media accounts before this accusation came out. And finally, Fraud is a Democrat who donates to left-wing causes, attended the anti-Trump March for Science, some scientist, and previously signed an open letter challenging Trump's border policy. So Dr. Fraud is a political activist who made dozens of donations to left-wing causes, and according to Open Secrets, she has made more than 60 donations to radical causes, 4 dozen to the pro-abortion group Emily's List alone. Dr. Fraud also donated to the DNC, to Hillary Clinton, more than 10 times, Bernie the Communist Sanders, and the progressive organizing group Act Blue. Dr. Fraud also attended the so-called anti-Trump March for Science. There were very few scientists in the group, by the way. They're all political hacks. So those are 16 reasons to question the veracity of Dr. Fraud. And tonight, from Grabien, great website, Grabien, tonight, right after my show at 4 o'clock, I can't wait to see Mr. Kavanaugh and his wife on Fox News, interviewed by a neutral party, because the McCollum, is that where he's going to be on? It's going to be amazing when you think about it, because we're going to actually get to see him and his wife and what they've been through. And maybe that will help turn this around, turn the ship around. Timeline for second Kavanaugh accuser by Caleb Hull, a blogger, writes, she didn't know who it was for 35 years. Kavanaugh was nominated. She met with Dem lawyer for 6 days to, quote, assess her memories. She had then accused Kavanaugh. She still isn't even sure it was him. All the witnesses deny it. Kavanaugh denies it. Other outlets passed on the story. And yet, Ronan Sparrow, the smallest bird in the history of the media, Ronan Sparrow flew in with this little whispering secret, trying to destroy a man in order to make his name. Now, those are the facts. There are many, many others, and there are many other news stories. And, of course, I can't leave you before this break. I'm not ready for a break. Michael Savage revolutionizing talk radio with new hybrid broadcast and podcast coming January 2019. I like the word storied broadcaster. That's an old word, storied broadcaster, to host the Savage Nation 1-hour radio show like Walter Winchell. You're going to get that 1 hour electricity that you've come to expect. And a new free, I emphasize free, intimate and revealing original podcast. And some stations will elect to carry the radio broadcast and the podcast as a 2-hour show. But for the stations that refuse to carry me for political reasons, you'll be able to get my show on all these other sites for free. So if you can't hear me on a radio station, so be it. That's the way it is. 855-400-7. I don't know my number. I'm too excited. 855-400-7. I used to announce my other telephone number after I left the other syndicator for a year. I don't know my number. I think it's 855-400-SAVAGE. It is, if you care to call and comment. Or go to the Drudge Report right now and check out what I'm saying, because it links to the story that I just told you about what I'm going to be doing in a little more detail. But going back to the new Savage Nation coming in January in the new podcast, what do you want me to talk about on the podcast? More politics? Because you're not going to hear more politics. You'll hear less politics. I'll tell you that right now. Because if I had to do more politics, I just wouldn't do it. I'm not interested in it anymore. And come January, do you actually think we're going to be at this fever pitch we are now before the midterms? The whole political thing is going to drop off the map like a cliff. There's only so much Mueller, so much Trump, so much Rosenstein, so much Kavanaugh we can take. They're not the sun, the moon, and the stars. You know what I'm saying? Now, there's a code of Hammurabi, a well-preserved Babylonian code of law of ancient Mesopotamia that has something to say about slander that I don't think Dianne Feinstein read. A well-preserved Babylonian code of law of ancient Mesopotamia dating back to about 1754 before Christ, middle chronology. It is one of the oldest deciphered writings of significant length in the world. And the 6th Babylonian king Hammurabi enacted this code, which has become a kind of a gold standard in some ways. And here is what he wrote. If anyone point the finger at a sister of a god or the wife of anyone and cannot prove it, this man shall be taken before the judges, and his brow shall be marked by cutting the skin or perhaps hair. Okay, I don't think the Code of Hammurabi would work in Congress today, since most of them have no hair. They're wearing wigs. But you get the picture. But let me go to our own laws, something Dianne Feinstein didn't read on Rosh Hashanah in Temple Emmanuel. I don't believe they quote the Ten Commandments in Temple Emmanuel. It's the most glorious Moroccan-themed or Arabic-looking temple in San Francisco, filled with the most liberal people in the city. I set foot in there once 30 years ago and vowed never to go back. It was like stepping into a place I felt dirty, and I needed a shower with brown soap after I came out of there, because it had nothing to do with God. But you know, there's a precept amongst the Jewish people that should have been spoken in Temple Emmanuel during the High Holy Days that says, thou shalt not bear false witness. Is that not one of the Ten Commandments, Clint? You're a biblical guy. Isn't there a precept like that Dianne Feinstein missed in her ascent to the mayorship and to the Senate? Thou shalt not cast false witness. You know what that means? This is false witness. She didn't investigate this. There's no proof that this occurred, and yet she has assassinated this man without a trial. Why? Well, it's all about power and money, isn't it? It's always about power and always about money. And that's why laws were written. It was to rein in the powerful, wasn't it? What were laws for? It was to give the little person a chance to fight the big person in a court of law. Isn't that what law is for? The big people don't need courts of law. They are the law. Isn't that true? Does a big person need a court of law? No. Now, today, with the advent of social media, we don't even have that anymore. Now we have the court of public opinion, which can be controlled with the pressing of a few keys, so that 8-year-olds can now make judgment about people whose lives they know nothing about. They can shatter lives with the pressing of a few keys. They can execute people by pressing a few keys. And the demigods who control these media outlets can destroy people's reputations and names by deplatforming them, as they have done today to James Woods, the Hollywood actor, simply because he's too conservative for Twitter. And so you say, well, he has a right to do that. Jack Dorsey does, even though he claims he doesn't have any bias against conservatives. He just deplatformed James Woods. So what does that tell you about the bias amongst the social media? It tells you that we need what we have with regard to media broadcast companies. What are they? Don't we have a commission that overlooks media outlets, television and radio, and like newspapers. Isn't it called the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission? I believe we do. It's a board that supervises and oversees some of this stuff. Why don't we have such a thing with Twitter, Facebook, and things like that? Instead of calling it the Federal Communications Commission, can't we call it something along the lines of the SCC, the Social Communications Commission? Do you think these people are above the law? They're just human beings, and their companies are subject to their biases.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Today, America's economy is flying higher and faster than any major nation in history. What President Trump has achieved has been amazing. But what happens in the November midterm elections could quickly slam on the brakes, sending the financial markets into a tailspin. The emergence of a socialist Democratic Party could have huge consequences, believe me. How will the midterm elections affect your investment portfolio? Find out now in a new Swiss America special report how the midterm elections will affect your bottom line. You get it today free by calling 800-289-2646. That's a number you have come to trust. 800-289-2646 or visit SwissAmerica.com. This is very serious business. If the Democrats gain a majority in Congress, all the economic gains we've seen could quickly disappear. Get prepared now. Call 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646 to find out how the midterm elections will affect your bottom line.
Talk Radio 560, KSFO.
I mean, let's be really down to earth with each other about something as simple as a car that breaks down, right? Even if you go in for an oil change and you get hit with a big repair bill for thousands of dollars, you know, the guy pulls the oil, he sees metal shavings in it. He says, I'm sorry to tell you, your engine needs to be rebuilt. That's like a lot of money, right? Thousands of dollars. What about a sensor that goes out in the car today? $1,000 or more. So if your car breaks down after the manufacturer's warranty expires, it could cost you thousands of dollars. But if you had vehicle protection, extended vehicle protection from CarShield, you're not going to worry about those unexpected surprises. It'll be like you're driving a new car that's under warranty. CarShield makes the process of fixing your car for a covered repair very easy. You can pick your own mechanic or dealership to do the work. They'll give you 24/7 roadside assistance and a rental car while yours is being fixed for free. So pay attention, please. If your car has 5,000 to 150,000 miles, you're in luck. It doesn't mean you have to pay high repair bills. CarShield administrators have paid out close to $2 billion in claims, and they're ready to help you. So please save yourself thousands in future car repairs. Get covered by the ultimate and extended vehicle protection. Call 800-CAR-6100. 800-CAR-6100. But you must mention code SAVAGE or visit carshield.com. And again, code SAVAGE, and you will save 10%. That's a big deal. That's carshield.com, code SAVAGE, or call 800-CAR-6100, code SAVAGE. A deductible may apply. As the second hour of my show flies to the end now, I need to summarize for you what I've been talking about, mainly about the fact that come January, the huge announcement linked up on the biggest site in the world, the one I look at to every morning for my news stories first, which is the Drudge Report. Everyone does. It's the gold standard. Everyone knows that. Even liberals that I run into, they all go to the Drudge Report. It's funny, I was at the Columbus Day Parade last year in San Francisco, and most of the politicians are liberals. And one of them came up to me, and she said, I go to the Drudge Report every day. And she's a liberal in San Francisco. So go to that report, and you'll see Michael Savage revolutionizing talk radio with new hybrid broadcast and podcast come January. I want to emphasize two things. It's happening in January, not today. And number two, it's free. You're not going to have to pay for the podcast. You get it for free. And some radio stations will choose to carry 2 straight hours of my show come January. And they'll get the first hour as a radio show. The second hour will be a repurposed podcast where they'll leave the good stuff out. What they're going to do is we're going to have to take out all of the good things for the broadcast part. I don't know how they're going to do it all in the morning, but man, am I going to be busy. You think I'm going to work less? I actually work harder. I added up the amount of time it's going to take. I'll be doing this 24 hours a day. But I'd rather do that than be just an old guy standing around looking at his hose going back and forth on his lawn, which unfortunately too many men do in America. This is the Savage Nation. I'll be back in a minute. Be here or be nowhere.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
And here we go into the final hour of the Savage Nation. I believe that most women in this country are not happy with the direction that the vicious lowlifes in the Democrat Party are taking this nation. I do not believe that any woman who has a son wants their son to grow up in a nation where their son's life could be ruined by one girl who gets mad at him 20 years later. Let's say they're dating a girl in high school, and they break up, and it's a bad breakup. 10 years later, that girl could destroy him when he's a professional because she can go out and do a whisper campaign with some lowlife from the New Yorker magazine? Do you think any mother, even a liberal mother, wants their son to grow up in such a climate of character assassination? The vileness of this, I think, is dissuading even liberals from going along with this grotesqueness. Nobody should have to put up with character assassination. We've lived in a nation of laws, more or less, for a very long period of time. And along comes this creature called Dianne Feinstein, who has upended the entire nation with her salacious accusations in the most phenomenal violation of Senate rules that I have seen in my lifetime. They had a hearing. They tried to destroy him during the hearing. Remember how it backfired on them? Remember Cory Booker said he had his moment? He thought he was a big hero. Cory Booker crashed and burned trying to grandstand. They all tried to grandstand on Kavanaugh. They all crashed and burned. So what does this lowlife Feinstein do? After the hearings are over, she comes up with this cockamamie story about this party girl who was molested by Kavanaugh when they were in high school. Kavanaugh being a boy at the time. That's not enough. They come up with another one who says, while I was drunk and I don't know what happened, I think he did it. That's number two. Now, I will say this to you. Kavanaugh himself is not backing down. He says, I will not be intimidated into withdrawing. I figured he'd back out by now. Because they have not only tried to destroy him, but his family as well. Never forget what effect this is having upon his children. Don't you love all the Democrats who are always talking about the children, the children, the children? Look what that vicious gutter snipe Feinstein and the others have done to the children of Kavanaugh with this campaign. They have ruined these children's lives for a very long time. You tell me they really care about children? They've always used children as a weapon to get every dollar that they've ever wanted. I think it's backfiring. Kavanaugh, Schmavanaugh. What they're doing to Kavanaugh tells you everything you need to know about the smear tactics of Dianne Feinstein and company. And I believe, and I have a very good stethoscope to America, especially since my audience is not strictly conservative nor Republican in any way. I've always been an independent conservative from the day I began in radio. I've never been a Republican. I've never been a member of the Republican establishment, and I'm proud of that. I'm not tied particularly to any party, especially not the Republican Party, but definitely not the Democrat Party, what they become. I mean, I grew up in a Democrat household. That's no secret. My parents were immigrants, and they were poor, and to them, the Democrats represented friends. The Republicans were for rich white people. So nothing's really changed when you think about it. I mean, the same exact visual story is being told today that was told when I was a kid. But the fact is that my audience consists of a large number of independents, and I have a good stethoscope to the huge independent votership that got Trump elected, which is why Trump got elected. And he knows that. Personally, I think he's too tied to Fox News right now. Personally, I think he needs to reach out to the independents right now. Personally, I think that they're isolating him in a Fox News chamber that's not good for his political future. I've said so, and I'm saying it right now. And you know that I'm going to tell you what I think, both as I have done on the radio and my new podcast. What a day this is. Savage announcement, new Savage Nation. What do you want to hear on the new podcast coming in July? I asked you about where were you in 82. I don't mean were you taking a shower or were you on Yosemite Mountain. I've asked you where were you in 82 with regard to repressed memories that are suddenly popping up, both men and women. Because if you look back, I mean, I know in my audience's age bracket, I have no idea what it might be in the 40s on average, maybe mid-40s. So go back to 82. How old were they? Maybe they weren't even born, some of them, actually, when you think about it. 30 years old, so they have no memories. They were infants in a cradle. But what about those of you in your 50s? Where were you in 82? You had your Sony Walkman. You were in high school or junior high school. You're telling me you didn't engage in this all you good, holier-than-thou liberals? Now all of a sudden he's the evil one? And how can any liberal man who is of a libertine persuasion, wild, free, and crazy, not understand how this is going to come to haunt them and destroy their lives unless you stop this witch hunt right now? I think that it's reached its high watermark. I think it has to start to recede right now, or else we're all going to be flooded by it. Today is really a big news day in that I think that the Democrats have overplayed their hand. I believe that we've reached the high watermark of the smear campaigns, and I believe that the blowback is coming, especially from the independents. I don't expect the radical women in the pink hats to ever change course. They are who they are. They're psychopaths, all of them, as far as I'm concerned. The whistleblowers that cried when Trump was elected, they're lost. They're lost to humanity. I'm talking about the huge swath of undecideds, the non-Democrats, the non-Republicans. People say I don't affiliate with either party. That's like people who don't go to church but believe in God. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, most Americans believe in God, but they don't go to a house of worship. Well, in radio, most Americans politically don't identify with either party. They want to reserve judgment, their own judgment. And I think on this Kavanaugh story, Dianne Feinstein has destroyed the Democrat Party for 50 years. What do you think? And so now we have a hysteria unlike I've ever seen in my life. I thought it was bad, but now we have Boxer insisting that he raped her. Barbara Boxer actually said, even though she wasn't there, she knows for a fact that he's a rapist. Then you have this guy, Shifty Schiff, saying the GOP is okay with putting someone who attempted rape on the Supreme Court. This, again, no trial. I'm going to ask anyone out there who's listening to this show if you think this is the kind of country you want to live in. Or do you want to live in a country where you can say a man committed rape when there's no evidence he did or didn't, but they've already rushed to judgment? Now, Shifty Schiff should know better, but Shifty Schiff is a Democrat. And Shifty Schiff has been calling for the impeachment of Trump for a long time now. I would say if there's any woman out there who knows Schiff from his years in high school or Shifty Schiff from his years in college, would you ever say a thing like that about Schiff, that he did a thing like that? Well, I don't know. I have a Woody Allen quote for you that I've always loved, where he says, I feel that life is divided into the horrible and the miserable. That's the two categories of his life. The horrible are like, I don't know, terminal cases, you know, and blind people crippled. He says, I don't know how they get through life. It's amazing to me. And the miserable is everyone else. So you should be thankful that you're miserable, because that's very lucky to be miserable. Now, if Donald Trump said that, I would think it would be funny. Woody Allen's saying it, I don't think it's funny, because nothing that Woody Allen does is funny as far as I'm concerned. Now we have a montage of Democrats, how any woman listening to this show who has forget a husband, how about a brother? How about a cousin? How about a nephew, a little nephew, an innocent little 7-year-old boy? How could you ever vote for anyone who's already calling Kavanaugh a rapist when the man hasn't had a trial? Listen to this montage of filthy, sick Democrats jumping to conclusions without a trial, calling Mr. Kavanaugh a rapist. I want you to listen to 04.
I believe Dr. Blasey Ford because she's telling the truth, and you know it by her story.
Kavanaugh denies being at the party to begin with and says his accuser might have mistaken him for someone else. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I've heard, many predators say and refute allegations against them. I think what we need...
As I said, I believe Professor Ford. I think she's credible, and I think when the investigation is finished and when she testifies and Judge Kavanaugh testifies, I think a majority of senators will find her credible.
She told her husband, this is a trauma she's been dealing with her whole life. She doesn't want to be in a bedroom that doesn't have two doors.
And it's going to be about listening to what each party has to say, but I believe her.
Do you believe her story?
Well, I can tell you it really does have a ring of truth to it. I am skeptical of polygraphs, but for those who believe them, she has passed a polygraph test.
I believe Dr. Ford, as I refer to her, because she makes a very credible case.
People knew that about her a long time ago. She told a friend a year ago. She told a reporter before Dr. Kavanaugh was ever named.
By the way, I believe Dr. Ford, the survivor. There's every reason to disbelieve Judge Kavanaugh after his evasive and seemingly misleading responses.
Shut up. Okay, I had enough of these people. This is what we mean by fascism. This occurred in the Soviet Union. This occurred in Hitler's Germany, where all you had to do was accuse someone and they were guilty. Now, you heard the voices of the Soviets of our day. You just heard the voices of Schumer. Some of them you recognize. That slimy thing, Blumenthal. The guy sounds like a snake with a human head. Schumer saying, I believe her, no trial. Schumer, what do you have in your background that you're hiding? What about your ties to Wall Street? What if someone accused you of doing surreptitious things? Would you say that's fair without a trial? You know, these people are the lowest of the low. But you know how I feel about them. And by the way, don't mistake me for a doctrinaire Republican, because I am not. I'm an independent, number one. But number two, how can you, if you have a son, ever vote for a Democrat who might take your son's life away from him based upon some girl in a playground who says he did this or he did that without a trial? We are moving into not dangerous territory. We've been in dangerous territory for a very long time. I would say since Barbara Boxer went into the Senate, we were in dangerous territory. Since the sneaky Queen of Hearts, Dianne Feinstein, went into the Senate, we've been in very dangerous places. But now it has reached a crescendo that unless voices like mine, first of all, speak out, and second of all, demand that they stop accusing people falsely, number one, but until there is a trial, they shut their big mouths because they're destroying not only him, but his wife and his children. Do you know what they're doing to Kavanaugh's children? Do you know what Boxer and Schumer and Blumenthal have just done to Kavanaugh's children? Now, remember this. Kavanaugh is not an unknown individual. Kavanaugh is a sitting federal judge. He's been through vetting every step of the way before he became a judge. Do you understand that? This is completely invented. It's completely made up. As far as I am concerned, it is a crime being committed against this man. Okay, we'll be right back on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-28. Cyber criminals can attack your laptop, tablet, or smartphone without warning, without you even knowing. Or they can steal your identity, and you may not realize it until it's too late. And that's why LifeLock Identity Theft Protection now includes the power of Norton Security to help protect your identity on devices. I have both. LifeLock uses proprietary technology to help detect a range of threats to your identity. How about your personal info for sale on the dark web? Well, Norton Security protects against online threats like ransomware or malware. And if there's a problem, LifeLock with Norton has agents who will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or cybercrime or monitor transactions at all businesses. But new LifeLock with Norton Security provides more detection and more protection against cyber threats. Go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code SAVAGE for an additional 10% off your first year. Plus, you get a $25 Amazon gift card with annual enrollment. That's LifeLock.com, promo code SAVAGE for 10% off and a $25 Amazon gift card. LifeLock.com, code SAVAGE. Terms apply. I'm Michael Savage, and you're listening to Talk 1300 at 98.7. This is the Savage Nation. Now, where were you in 82? We've contacted the New Yorker on this breaking story about a second accuser of Kavanaugh. And I want to ask you, where were you in 82? What repressed memories, ladies, are coming back to you? I mean, we're hearing about these crazy things that went on in the 80s. Do you think that it was limited to Catholic schoolgirls in Maryland? And what's this about Catholic schools, by the way? Am I daring to even ask that question? I mean, there's been a rumor in America for a long time, you know what I'm saying? That religious education tends to repress certain feelings and emotions that flare up now and again. And what's with this big boozing at that all-girls school? I thought that you sent your daughters to these schools because they led a better life. Well, no, not really. As I've said to many people, these private schools are good because, well, your kids get cleaner drugs there. And they're safer. They don't have to go into the ghettos to get the drugs. They just buy them from the teachers or whatever, wherever they get them from. But allegedly, it's much safer. The drugs are safer at these private schools. And so a second Kavanaugh accuser comes forward who says she was drunk and doesn't remember, but it doesn't stop Ronan Sparrow from being the little bird that he always has been and ruining a man's reputation. But, you know, the real loser here is the New Yorker magazine. Look, the New Yorker was once the gold standard of literary magazines in the country. I grew up on it. I loved their profiles. I was honored when they profiled me in 2009. And here we see this magazine so desperate for a readership, whatever, that they're going into the gutter and ruining people's lives. In this case, a man named Kavanaugh. But tomorrow it could be you. Do you want to live in a country where a man can be destroyed by a man, a person? Because tomorrow it'll be a woman who can be destroyed by a mere whisper. A whisper campaign. That's how bad it is. I'll get back to Kavanaugh and Catholic schools in a moment, and where were you in 82? But I want you to go to the Drudge Report and see the cartoon of me that was put up. It's not the most beautiful picture of Michael Savage ever done. I mean, I'm a good-looking guy sometimes. Sometimes I'm horrible-looking. Like everybody else, you know, you have good days, good hours, bad hours. And it's like, you know, there's many different pictures of me out there. This is perhaps almost Frankensteinian. But I kind of like it. It's got autumn colors to it. It's mustard colored. Michael Savage to launch the Radio Hour and a podcast. It's a huge announcement in the industry. And I have to tell you what this really means. And I'll read you the headline from Westwood One. Michael Savage revolutionizing talk radio with new hybrid broadcast and podcast. Now, that's the Radio Hour, followed by a podcast. And I'll tell you more about that as time goes on. Storied broadcaster to host the Savage Nation 1 hour radio show and new free, you don't have to pay for it, intimate and revealing original podcast starting January 2019. It's very important you understand it's not starting tomorrow or today. It's in January, so don't expect this until January. New York, September 24th, 2018, Westwood One. America's largest audio network and legendary broadcaster Michael Savage are innovating together in 2019 with the launch of a 1 hour version of the Savage Nation radio show, which has millions of dedicated listeners and a new original podcast. Here's what I have to say about it. And I wrote the words. I didn't have a PR person write it. As I move into the next phase of my 25-year radio career, I hope to bring even more listeners to the medium of audio with the Savage Nation, said Savage. I will be free to innovate in unique ways on my podcast. The flexibility of the platform will permit me to expand my storytelling and insights into politics, books, food, cars, and rock and roll. I'm going to change the way talk radio is spoken and consumed, I said. They then quote Suzanne Grimes, Executive Vice President of Marketing for Cumulus Media and President of Westwood One, where Ms. Grimes says Dr. Savage's on-demand audience is massive, and I have no doubt this new podcast will be too. He has fans from all over the world and from different walks of life who will flock to his versatile new shows.
Savage.
Stop George Soros and his paid agitators before they ignite a civil war in the United States. Remember, I alerted you to Borders, Language, and Culture. They are trying to destroy this nation. Stop mass hysteria. You need to own Stop Mass Hysteria. It's a history book, a political book. America's insanity from the Salem witch trials to the Trump witch hunt. Stop Mass Hysteria. Go wherever books are sold. The Savage Army wants you. Buy a copy of Stop Mass Hysteria now. because I got an ear for radio, an ear for music, an ear for sound, an ear for people, and an ear for you. Now, I just got an email from a man I consider one of the brightest people I know. His name is Jeff Rovin in New York City. Listen to what he just said. He heard the show till now in New York, and he said, "You were 100% correct today about the blowback against the Dems for Kavanaugh. I was talking to a lifetime Dem who said he himself would be screwed if he were held accountable for what he did at 17, especially without due process. He is now reevaluating his party loyalty and may register independent. And it is so transparently left-funded smear. I wouldn't be surprised to see Dr. Ford cancel. I said Ford. Okay, I'll read. He says, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ford cancel over some testimony detail. Neither would I. I think Fraud knows she's cooked in advance of this Thursday appearance. And I think that the Republicans dug in. I didn't know McConnell had that kind of guts, but, you know, you have to expect that a guy like McConnell, as weak as he may appear at times, he must be made of pretty hard stuff coming from Kentucky as he does, number one. But number two, he didn't get where he is and stay where he is by being weak. He can put on an act. He dug his heels in today, Mitch McConnell, and he said, we're voting on this. All 100 senators are going to vote on this, is what he said, no matter what happens. I love hearing that. Finally, the Republicans have some spine, and I'll tell you why. Because Bush is not in the White House. It's because Trump is in the White House. It's because we have a president with character, a president with spine, a president with guts, a president who never says, I'm going to give in, a president who will not quit no matter what the odds. And I think he has inspired the knock-kneed Republicans to take off their skirts and put on their pants. I've met some tough guys in skirts. They're from Scotland. But it's a metaphor. Take off their skirts and put on their pants. The fact is that he said we're going to vote no matter what they do. And I think, and I do have a good stethoscope to America, that the blowback has not yet been seen. Forget that you're not reading it in the newspapers yet. You expect the San Francisco newspaper or New York newspaper to tell you that they overreached, that there's a reaction now from men, even liberals, who realize they could be destroyed by this? You're not going to read that anywhere. I'm telling you what public opinion is before you read about it anywhere else, because I'm more intuitive than anyone in the business. Everyone knows that. Everybody in the business knows that I am more intuitive, and I react more realistically to breaking news than anybody in radio. Most people don't react to the news as it occurs, by the way. They have pre-planned shows. They have the reactions in advance. I'm like on there, Johnny on the spot. So Kavanaugh will be on television on Fox News in about an hour and a half from now in New York, obviously, New York Times. So, well, an hour and a half from anywhere. He's going to be on Fox News, not on Hannity's show. I don't know how they figured that out, that maybe there's enough Hannity to go around the world 50 times and that he doesn't have the credibility that they need. He went to Martha McCullum, who has more credibility in this regard. There's nothing to do with an axe to grind. I'm telling you that whoever is handling the Kavanaugh nomination made a very smart choice in not going on the Abbott and Costello show. There's only so much Hey Abbott they can take. The Zelig of talk radio. Wherever you turn, there he is on the stage with Trump, off the stage. It's enough already. We don't need a government media complex. Anyway, they're going on the Martha McCullum show. I can't wait to watch it about an hour after the show is over, except I have a meeting at 4:30 my time. It's on at 4. I could probably watch 15 minutes of it or watch it. Maybe I can get it on demand as a podcast. I'm joking. So we know what's coming. All right, let's take some of the calls on the Savage Nation as we go back to the callers. Ruth on WABC line 2. What's on your mind, Ruth?
Hello. I want to say that 30 years ago, the therapist decided to examine young women to see their repressed memories, to see if they were abused. So this one woman goes to the therapist and he tells her father abused her, and she didn't believe it. Well, she heard it enough times till she did believe it. Over and over again, she hated the father. The whole family became asunder. They all hated each other. And there came a time when she thought to herself, this really never happened. And so I'm thinking to myself, this therapist who's speaking to this here Dr. Ford ought to be examined. How does he come upon the answers that he gave her? Because she's a victim just like what is his name? Kavanaugh is.
Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh is the real victim here. What you're saying is a very important point, Ruth. which is called in the psychological jargon imagination inflation. And they studied this, experts in the field, Gary, Manning, Loftus, and Sherman, and they published an article, Imagination Inflation. When you imagine a childhood event, it inflates confidence that it occurred. So when a therapist puts such thoughts in the mind of a patient, it becomes more likely that the patient believes these things actually happen. And in this sense, the psychologist who did this with Dr. Fraud, I think that psychologist should be called before a board and his or her credentials be pulled for doing this to the man named Kavanaugh. They're destroying a good man. But what about the effect that Feinstein is having upon Kavanaugh's daughters? This is a woman who built a career on lies. Her whole life is built on a life of lies. And here she's built a life on, I'm for the children. Barbara Boxer and I have spent our lives helping children. And don't forget Hillary Clinton. By the way, where is Hillary Clinton on all of this? Clint, has anyone heard Hillary Clinton sound off on this? This is very interesting. Clint, are you there? Is anyone listening to the show right now? Is there anyone listening to the show who could tell me? Has Hillary Clinton commented on this situation? Yes? What has she said?
It would be very easy for the FBI to go back and finish the background investigation, to investigate these charges. And, maybe find out there's nothing to them, maybe find out there is something to them, but at least have that investigation completed. And I think that's what is a fair request.
I wish she was speaking about Feinstein, to do an FBI investigation of Feinstein. Then I'd sleep better at night. But I do know this. I know Kavanaugh has been subjected to an FBI background check when he ran as a federal judge, which is more than I can say about most of the senators who have not had background checks. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they had any background checks, but Kavanaugh did. So now you want the whole FBI now to stop its anti-terror task force, anti-crime task force, to look into an allegation from some woman from when she was in high school and she was drunk, and spend their time on that now more so than on a terrorist case? I don't think so. They have destroyed Kavanaugh, by the way, even if he is a Supreme Court justice, just as they ruined Clarence Thomas to this day. You think Clarence Thomas has not been tainted to this day by what these same individuals did to him in the politics of personal destruction? So they've destroyed Kavanaugh and his family, and it's a sad day in America that they can get away with this without any blowback on themselves personally, incidentally. But let's go to the other callers. Deborah on KLIF. Deborah, what's your topic on the Savage Nation today?
My topic is, I was just touching on what you had said earlier about revenge. I really appreciated that because my husband was killed by an illegal alien back in October who had no driver's license. The city in which I live is not doing anything about it.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I can't hear you. Can you fix that, Jim? She's inaudible. No. I heard you say that your husband was killed by an illegal alien.
Yes.
And did the illegal alien get punished by the system?
No.
What do you mean no? Where is the guy, the bum who drove your husband over and killed him?
Irving, Texas.
Wait. You're not. He killed your husband and he didn't go to jail?
No.
Why?
Well, they said it was just a bad accident. My husband shouldn't have died in the accident, but he did.
But wait, you're saying the illegal alien was drunk?
No. She was probably texting is what I was told. But they never sequestered her phone to find out, and I begged them to. So,
all right, so you feel that there's been no justice in the death of your husband by this driver who killed him in a wreck. And what you're saying is now you can feel a little better saying leave vengeance to God, as I suggested?
Yes, that really spoke to me, and thank you for saying that because I go through that every day. I was married for 37 years.
No, it's a heartbreak, but you should carry that mantra around with you and everyone listening. Most of us carry around thoughts of hurting someone who hurt us or someone in our family. We can't sleep at night. We're all human. When we hear something happen to a family member by someone, you want to get even, don't you? That's the human condition. But we're more than animalistic, and we have to go to our own religious teachings and remember that there is a saying, leave vengeance to God, and leave vengeance to God. I believe, Deborah, that God does act in the long run, not always, And I'm not one who says, well, the person who did that crime will face his consequences in the next world. I like to see it in this world, and I've seen it enough times in this world to say to you that God actually does act on this earth. So the next time you get those murderous thoughts in the middle of the night to get even with the person who killed your husband and got away with murder because of the legal system, just remember, leave vengeance to God. And it'll help you rest at night, as it did with my mother when she asked me. I told you that. She said to me, this, do that. He stole all my money. I said, Ma, leave vengeance to God. And so at the end, it turned out that's the way it was. You know what I'm saying? KLIF, Dallas, Texas, line 8. Matt, line 8, line 8, line 8. You're on the Savage Nation.
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon there, Dr. Savage. Hey.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was hearing about your new podcast show. Very excited about that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. On Twitter about a lot of cultural and historical events that you talk about on your show now. And just wanted to go back. I think what's going on now in the broad context of everything with President Trump and basically trying to, with what the left's doing to usurp him, to overthrow him, is it's a repeat of history. And I think...
Well, there are elements in history like this of an internal coup and a smear campaign that's gone on from the beginning of political history. But I quoted Hammurabi, the law of Hammurabi, earlier about bearing false witness, which should apply to Dianne Feinstein and all the other smear artists, don't you think? Don't you think that there should be consequences for smearing a person?
Oh, 100%, absolutely.
Well, she can't lose in San Francisco because her voters are all as crazy as she is. And they have no ethics and no morals. They could care less about it. All they care about is their left-wing agenda. So I wouldn't look for that in the district. Unfortunately, California is lost. When you look at what happened in this state in the past and how it's been stolen by the radical Democrat Socialist Party, primarily by bringing in millions upon millions of non-citizens to vote for these people, it's almost impossible to believe that our Republican candidate can even win in any way. But he's moving up in the polls, isn't he, here in California? So, yes, leave vengeance to God. But you're asking about the podcast and what I should do in it. I think you said I should bring in some things about morals, ethics, and military history. I'm going to do that. I have a military expert I'm going to use on a regular basis. I know people are interested in it, and I think we're going to get some experts in history on the show on a regular basis. Lots of good stuff. Really, really good things. And the phone number here again for the last segment is 855-407-282. And as soon as the show is over, you're going to have about, an hour until he's on, Kavanaugh? Everyone's going to watch him tonight that can. It's going to be as big as the hearings, I hope. Well, it's on cable, not on major TV. I doubt very much that Good Morning America would give Kavanaugh and his wife the opportunity to present themselves. But who knows? We could be surprised by George step on all of us. I'll be back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Do you have sunspots and age spots? Well, listen to Renee from Boulder, Colorado, raving about the brand-new Genucel Sun Spot Corrector. She says, I love the Genucel Sun Spot Corrector. It is my go-to product every day. Watch your sunspots, age spots, and even red inflamed patches vanish right before your very eyes. And just like Renee, if you click or call right now, you'll get the Genucel Sun Spot Corrector absolutely free just for trying Genucel for bags and puffiness. Watch those stubborn sunspots vanish now before you get busy with the holidays and those bags and puffiness gone. And for results in less than 12 hours, the Genucel Immediate Effects is also yours free. You heard me, free again. Go to Genucel.com now or call 1-800-SKIN-891, 800-SKIN-891. When you order this week, you'll receive Chamonix Luxury Microdermabrasion for instantly radiant baby soft skin. Order now and shipping is also free. Call 800-SKIN-891 or go to Genucel.com. You heard me right. That's 800-SKIN-891 or Genucel.com. Take 1 atom of nitrogen and bond it with 1 atom of oxygen. Boom, you just created nitric oxide, a miracle molecule your own body makes that fuels your cardiovascular health, keeping you vibrant. But as we all age, our bodies need help generating more natural nitric oxide. Super Beets by Human has harnessed the power of nutrient-enriched beets and created a superfood that helps your body make more nitric oxide on its own. The core philosophy of Human is to develop heart-healthy products for your body. 1 teaspoon of Super Beets daily tends to support your cardiovascular health and blood pressure levels, giving you natural energy without the need of a quick caffeine kick or sugar high. We're talking real, healthful, natural energy. So call 800-481-0504 or go to SavageLovesBeets.com and find out how you can get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets and free shipping with your first purchase. I want you to feel the 1 + 1 = boom effect of Super Beets. Just call 800-481-0504 or SavageLovesBeets.com. I'm Michael Savage, and you're listening to Talk 1300 and 98.7. Well, I have a special reward for those of you who stuck with me right through the end of the third hour on this historic day in the Savage Nation. We have a little piece of the Kavanaugh interview from Fox News that we're going to play for you, in which he denies any sexual misconduct in this Fox News exclusive. I want you to listen very carefully. Here is a man on the record. I wish Dianne Feinstein would be forced to testify. Listen.
I'm not going to let false accusations drive us out of this process, and we're looking for a fair process where I can be heard and defend my integrity, my lifelong record of promoting dignity and equality for women, starting with the women who knew me when I was 14 years old. I'm not going anywhere.
Good for him. He's a fighter. But he also said, I have faith in God and I have faith in the fairness of the American people. So do I. And I believe he is now seen as the victim, number one. Number two, I believe Dianne Feinstein has destroyed the Democrat Party for 50 years. Number three. Number three is coming up. Number three, I think that even, especially liberal men, who usually lead a more risque life than conservative men, they have things they have done in the past that they know could destroy their lives if they let this kind of witch hunting go on by the radical left. And many of them are going to leave the Democrat Party. And I think that the high water mark has been reached. I think that by fighting back, they're fighting smart. Fighting back is fighting smart. Now, the full interview with Mr. Kavanaugh, who you just heard, and his wife, Ashley, who I'd like to hear a little later, will be at in about an hour from now on Fox News on Martha McCullum's show, The Story, which is very telling. Again, it's a sub-story for those of you in the media that they chose not to go on the other show that seems to be the Zelig of politics today. And again, let's not forget the big announcement today, the new Savage Nation revolutionizing talk radio. And it will be a revolution. It's the Savage Hour with a hybrid podcast to follow across America, going from a 3-hour show to a 1-hour show. Some markets a 2-hour show. But mostly you should understand that the flexibility of the podcast platform will permit me, Michael Savage, to reach you in a more intimate and revealing way, expand my storytelling and insights on books, food, cars, rock and roll. I'm going to change the way talk radio is spoken and consumed, and it will be for free. I'm not selling you anything. And don't forget, do not forget the deadline of October 9th. Stop mass hysteria. My biggest book to date. I hope it's not lost in all of this clutter. I don't think it will be, because it's more on target today than it was when I first conceived this child.